Okay, I'm definitely reaching borderline hipster status. This is what my wife got me for my birthday. It's a record player. Now I can play all of my old records and talk about how much warmer the sound quality is on them compared to Spotify. Actually, this is a really cool thing because I have a lot of records, maybe 100 or more. I used to have even more than that, but I got rid of them over the years. My record purchasing years ended somewhere in the mid-80s when I was just switching all over to CDs. So as a result, my entire record collection existed a bubble from about 1977 to about 1985 or so. And a lot of those records I literally haven't listened to since then. And I've never really had a need to play those records since I could listen to all of those on Spotify if I want to. But I gotta say, it's been pretty fun playing records on this. There's a certain ritual about playing a record that's kind of satisfying. Playing records also kind of forces you to listen to an entire side of an album rather than a lot of times what I find myself doing on Spotify is just flipping from song to song. A lot of times not even completing the entire song. Anyway, I have nowhere to put this thing, so I thought I would make a little record cabinet and a little storage area to hold at least some of my records. Here's the simple design I've come up with. This is definitely very retro looking, which I think fits the feel. I've ordered some of these hairpin legs. These will be arriving in a couple of days. The funny thing about that is these are 12-inch legs, which are more expensive than 16-inch legs. This is all going to be 3/4-inch plywood, except for these two dividers, which are probably going to be 1/2-inch dividers. I might just use 1/4-inch plywood on those, I'm not sure. And then all of these seams and joints are going to be covered up with edge banding. I'm going to use that iron-on edge banding. It looks really sleek. The top has a 1/4-inch overhang on all edges, so the way I'm going to secure the top is with some probably screws, and then I'll fill these holes in with some dowels, or I might just drive a dowel all the way through there. I haven't quite decided yet. I'm not really sure what this open area is going to be used for, but I don't know, maybe the cats can go in there and play or something. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out on this is I decided to go with the golden ratio on this project. So right about there is the Fibonacci sequence, so I guess that makes it look a little bit nicer, maybe. Here's my complete record collection without a new purchase in the past 30 years or so. But I gotta say, it's an odd feeling to flip through these albums and remember the kind of stuff I was listening to back in the early 80s. And with this many years separated from it, when I listen to it now, a lot of that music was really, really bad. They say a lot of times people's music tastes are kind of stuck at the point when they were 16 or 17 years old. But honestly, the music I find myself listening to the most is today's music. I think there's a lot of innovation going on in music right now. I think this is really a great time for musicians, especially because there's so much indie music out there and people just producing music without having to go through huge record labels. I think it's the same reason why I'm drawn to indie movies too. I think that's where you see the most innovation. One thing I've just been done with for years is classic rock. I'd be pretty happy if I never had to hear Stairway to Heaven again, ever. But I guess that probably goes back to my kind of formative musical years where I was getting into music and it was new wave and punk music of the early 80s. And there was a period where I got into hair metal. I actually saw Rat, Twisted Sister, saw them in concert. I think there are some timeless albums and bands. The Dead Kennedys I always loved. Devo, I think. They're quirky, but I always loved Devo. How many of you remember the Plasmatics? And of course I got a ton of Pink Floyd. Every generation gets into Pink Floyd at some point. It's me, they're speaking directly to me. Hey, I've got an all new segment of the show I'd like to premiere today. It's called the ABCs of Woodworking. It's the ABCs of Woodworking. He needs a better jingle. I actually tried this before on my channel, but I think I overthought it a little bit, but I got all the way from A to C. That was as far as I got. So hopefully I get a little further this time. I'm not gonna do this every day, but you know, occasionally. We'll kick this off with A. A is for arbor. The arbor is that post on your table saw or any other power saw that holds the blade in place. An arbor isn't something that you really need to give a lot of thought to. Basically, you just remove the blade, you put a new one on, and you tighten down the arbor nut. The only thing I like to caution people about is to not over tighten the nut. You just tighten it until where it stops, and it'll be kind of self-tightening because the blade is going in the opposite direction. If you over tighten the arbor nut, you'll have a really hard time getting it off, and chances are it'll break free all at once and you'll bust your knuckles. The only other interesting thing I know about arbors is that the ones on European table saws are short, so they'll only accept a single blade, which is why European woodworkers can't use stacks of dado blades. I think there might be some exceptions for some professional cabinet shops, I'm not really sure. But in general, it's kind of a bummer that Europeans can't use dado stacks, because for me, that's a huge part of my woodworking. And that concludes this edition of the ABCs of Woodworking. I just got back from the hardware store. I picked up a half sheet of plywood. They sell these 4x4 panels, and it's really nice plywood. It's just so much easier to handle than a full 4x8 sheet of plywood. You pay a little bit extra for that, but sometimes I think it's a lot better. Plus it saves me the trip of having to go all the way down to the big box store when the hardware store is just a couple miles away. Another option you can consider, especially if you just don't have a big truck to carry around plywood, is some of the big box home centers will cut a sheet of plywood for you if you need them to. While I was at the hardware store, I picked up a roll of this bandit stuff. It's edge banding. It's iron-on edge banding. It's made out of real wood. It looks just like the real thing, and it covers up the edges of plywood so it looks like solid wood. I've had really good results with this. I've used it for years and years, and you know, it comes in all different flavors. You can get it in, this one is birch, and you get pine, you know, cherry, walnut, chocolate. Oh, I am so excited about this. I found something to go in that shelf part of this cabinet. It's a sound-activated party lights with remote-controlled DJ lighting, RGB disco ball, strobe lamp, 7 modes, stage par light for homeroom dance parties, birthday, DJ bar, karaoke, Xmas wedding show, club pub. It's gonna be a party all the time in my house. Honestly, that's the best sound-activated party lights with remote-controlled DJ lighting, RGB disco ball, strobe lamp, 7 mode stage par light for home room dance parties, birthday, DJ bar, karaoke, Christmas, wedding show, club pub that I've ever seen. It just makes me happy. That's arriving on Thursday, the same day those legs come, but I'm much more excited about this than those hairpin legs. And if that wasn't enough to be happy about, let's have one more thing to be happy about today in our big book of things to be happy about. It's gonna be a random one. Corsage pins. I don't know, maybe it makes somebody happy. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'll get started on this project. I'll actually start doing some woodworking on it tomorrow or the next day. I don't know. I'll see you later.